Ah, hello there. Welcome to the channel. Today's video I'm going to be attempting to teach how to use the sculpting workflow in Blender to texture paint, which in my opinion is way more fun, way more optimized and all that jazz than the original texture painting setup in Blender. It does require some additional setup to get it out of Blender, but it's a lot more fun to use. So first things first, you're gonna of course need a model. Having it properly, having proper quads, having proper topology, having it well made and proper UVs gonna help a lot, but it's not necessarily required. If you just want it for use in Blender or like in a short film or something like that, you can have hang-ons out the wazoo, you can have holes in your mesh, doesn't really matter. But if you want to use it outside of Blender, say for a game, animation outside like in Unity, Unreal, stuff like that, you're gonna want to have a proper subdivided mesh. Well, first things first, duplicate your object so you have a backup, and because you want to eventually bake down into it. So let's merge these objects together so we have one cohesive whole. And by cohesive whole, I mean one thing to paint on instead of switching between two. And then we have to subdivide them to a reasonable level. What is a reasonable level? Well, we're gonna be using a type of vertex paint, which needs a lot of topology because every vertex is like a pixel in a traditional painting program. So this roughly, I might even go one higher. Yeah, let's go one higher. Doesn't really hurt, as there's some stuff happening under the hood with Blender's sculpting mode, which means this level of topology completely usable in sculpting mode. Same thing for the op. There we go. Now, time to switch over to sculpt mode. Do not know why one of them already a color attribute. That's what. Anyway. So this is the painting method. These are the painting tools I was referencing earlier. You need a color attribute, which is gonna turn the whole thing black because that's the default color. And then you can just start painting on it. A bunch of settings along the top here, including wet mix, which allows you to do like a whole watercolor-esque, like even bump this even higher. You'll see like it's mixing together, see how. And of course you can do this with colors and stuff like that, so it's. If I set it a bit lower again, because it's now washing out the colors. Gotta find that right balance, because you can see you can do really nice smooth gradients with this. Anyway, back to black because that's what I need. This, and I'm gonna set this wet mix 0 for now. And also just use these mirroring, like this all has the same tools as like sculpting in Blender, so you can use face sets, you can use the mirroring, you can use everything basically that yeah, anything that the sculpting workflow offers. And there's also like texture options, stroke options, fall off options, and stuff like that, compared to this, which has, yeah, that's not a lot of options. And these like stroke and fall off, yeah, those are just under like one menu in this, like it's, yeah. Anyway, continuing on, I'm just gonna time lapse me painting this, and I'll get back to you guys when And there we go. As you can tell, I'm no world-class painter, but it'll do. Also, if you want to be able to quickly switch between having a flat version so you can color pick easily, I'd highly recommend using the I cannot really easily color pick this. I'd highly recommend using the workbench render with this specific setup. So this under attribute, madcap, you can really easily quickly switch between them. Right. Now on to the hard part. If you only want to use some Blender, let's quickly go over that setup. You now go to the model, add a shading node, and you add a color attribute. And you set that to the color attribute is over here. You can name this anything you want, say for example base color, not color, color, there you go. And then we'll show up here as base color. And you just drag down the base color. Then when you go into Eevee, it'll actually show up as the base color of the object. Now then, to actually bake this out and have this as an image instead of just being a color attribute, and to be able to use it on these low poly models, we are going to have to bake it down. So let's add an image texture. A new one. I'm just gonna leave it as untitled, and I'm gonna make a 4K image. The resolution of this doesn't really matter that much, but the bigger the resolution, of course, the more detail it will capture from the paint, but also it's gonna take longer to bake. And baking is, in fact, quite a slow process. It can take up to, I think the longest I've had to wait for it is 30 minutes. Usually it's like 10, but it is definitely a slow process. But once it's done, and well, it's much more fun than trying to paint in the god-awful texture paint workflow, so it's worth it in my opinion. Always set this to GPU computer if you have a good one, a good GPU. These settings I usually just leave at default. It's pretty decent, for at least for texture baking. Go down the bake section. You set bind, set the bake to diffuse, because the base color, which is the diffuse layer. You unchecked indirect and direct lighting because that's gonna cast shadows. If you want to bake in shadows, you'll leave these ticked, but I generally turn these off because I want to use it as a base color. I don't want to use it as like the entire thing. And that's pretty much it. If it's gonna take longer, make sure to change these settings, and then you just make sure this is selected also, like this, the image and the shading node, because otherwise it's not gonna bake down into it. It's just gonna say, didn't find an image, yeah, because you didn't have one selected in here. Also make sure metallic is off, because if you have metallic on, it somehow, for some reason, just all ends up as black. Don't know why, just happens. Anyway, click bake. And make sure you have the object selected. And it's done. That roughly took 5 minutes to render out. I also noticed in here I completely forgot to paint the bottom, but it's the bottom, who cares? Now we can go back to layout. Or correction, shading. Only being shading. And we can re-enable the original collection. At this point I just merge these down because, well, this is gonna be the final model. And now we make a new material and we add the image texture. Select our image texture, put it in the base color, boom. We have our original image that we painted. The same exact thing on both. And yes, this is really, really basic. I won't deny that. And just to reconfirm, this is the level of detail on this. And this is the level of detail on this, if it ever loads. Will you load? There we go. That's the level of detail on this. So yeah, that's quite a reduction in density. But I can still, yeah, some of you thinking, yeah, that's all good and that, but it's very simple. You just paint it down to a layer. Nothing. This can't be used for like actual models, can it? It's just like, oh, you slap down some colors and that's it. Well, got a surprise for you. This was painting using the exact same techniques. I just used multiple. You switch over to the shading tab. I used multiple color attributes, mixed them together, baked them all together, and then eventually put them into one texture. Yeah, the UVs for this are not great. It's kind of all over the place, which does show up here and there. Yeah, there's not supposed to be orange on there or there. But overall, looks pretty damn good, doesn't it? And before I forget, thanks in order. I did not model this. In fact, it's not modeled at all. This is a sculpture made by the very talented Jerichos, whose links will be down in the description. He's known for having sculpted stuff like the miniatures for the Monster Hunter and Elden Ring board games, and recently, well, I say recently, he's also worked for the UT Combat group, I guess. Not very familiar with them, but he has worked with them on official Stellaris board game. And you have an example of some hard surface stuff he has done, and some more organic sculpting, both of which turned out beautifully, if you ask me. So again, details of this will be in the description. And with that, that's that. I hope you all enjoyed this video and it was helpful. And if it was helpful, well, for you the bell tolls, you'll know what to do. And hopefully I'll see you next time. But most importantly, have fun.